The future of media and Fox News in the post-Tucker era. And as Joe Biden gears up to run for president, I'm Matt Robison, Beyond Politics. We're on the Blue Amp channel on YouTube and available, of course, wherever you get your podcasts. Just totally delighted to welcome back Mark Jacob, an outstanding former editor for the Chicago Sun-Times, the Chicago Tribune. Tucker, I referred to in a video last night as the most vile person in America. And clearly, he is a problem. But was he a problem on his own, or more of a symptom of the deeper pathology of what's going on at Fox News?
I think he was a symptom of that, but he got ahead of it. I feel like that the Murdochs and Fox News, they much prefer kind of the second tier fascist propagandists, Brian Kilmeade and Jesse Waters, those kind of people. I think Tucker Carlson got too big for him, and they don't really like someone getting ahead of their game. They'd much rather just spout the message and get steady ratings from the 80-year-olds who are scared of people with dark skin and stuff like that. I think that Tucker scared them because he was getting too influential and powerful. They certainly weren't offended by the fact that, as you point out, Tucker Carlson is a terrible person who's hurt our country. People have died because of Tucker Carlson. His misinformation on vaccines has killed people. His diminishment of the importance of January 6th, name it. He's just this vile racism and sexism, just a terrible guy. And Murdoch was pretty much okay with that for a long time. Murdochs like to play the long game. They like to just make steady money, and they don't want to get a situation where they get so far ahead of things and get so out there that they get sued and lose $250 million, $750 million, sorry. And they don't want that. So they're trying to rein it back in and do the usual stuff that makes them money. Tucker Carlson just got a little bit too famous for them, frankly, and it scared them.
I think you're right, not only about Tucker, but obviously this is the Trump story. He is both a symptom and a cause of a lot of problems on his own. I put out a video last night in which I did speculate a little bit on three potential reasons for the firing here. One was that it was revealed through the Dominion lawsuit that he, in his own words, passionately hates Donald Trump. That's a problem for them strategically because Donald Trump is very much back. And the whole reason they got into trouble in these lawsuits is that they could not cross Trump. They could not tell people that the emperor has no clothes and is actually a flaming lunatic. The second potential reason is that he was bad-mouthing company executives behind the scenes. Never a good practice at your place of employment. Don't do it, folks. Number three is that there are further lawsuits ahead, including from Smartmatic on the election disinformation angle, and also for harassment and he's been subject to these things before. So it seems like he was a bottomless hole of future PR problems for the company. Now, we don't know what we don't know, but just to lean on your experience inside media organizations and what we know based on these revealed messages about these topics, what in your mind stands out as what might have been the driving factor here, given that Tucker was giving Fox what it wanted in terms of ratings?
That's really important to remember, is that he was giving them what they wanted and that they enabled it for a very long time. I just disagree with the Trump thing because I think one of the characteristics of kind of MAGA mentality is short memory and not really remembering, not remembering things. Witness the fact that now they're like pounding on, we can't have a deficit. We're spending too much money. When Trump was president, they just went crazy spending money and giving tax breaks and just digging us into a big debt hole. But now they really
went up 25% under Donald Trump.
25% of the debt that the U.S. has was in 4 years under Trump. Yet they're counting on their followers. Rightly, they're smart to count on their followers to forget all about that or not know it in the first place. So I feel like Trump and Carlson reportedly just talked on the phone about Carlson's comments and made up. See, Trump doesn't really have friends. He just has temporary allies. He'll throw under the bus when he needs to, but he has them when he needs them. And witness the DeSantis thing. They're big friends, now they're big enemies. So I don't think that the Trump thing is a factor at all, frankly. I'd have to tell you. I do think that it might be that Murdoch certainly likes loyalty with his top executives and top personalities, and the Murdochs may have been offended by the various kind of backbiting comments that he made that were revealed in the Dominion lawsuit. So I buy that one. I do think it might very well be a factor of them thinking they're just going to get roasted on future lawsuits. And on the current one, his producer, Abby Grossberg, I believe is her name, has filed about sex harassment. That looks really bad. That's just this kind of,
And anti-Semitic comments, which is the leitmotif that runs through the right these days.
And yes, the real problem here, Matt, is that the people who are following Tucker Carlson and a lot of people who watch Fox like that stuff. They like saying terrible things about Jews. They like saying terrible things about women. They like this kind of white identity mentality. In fact, that's the real danger of Fox News and right-wing propaganda right now, is that it's making people feel good about hate. It's making people feel that, boy, I've always felt this way, but now I can do it publicly. Now I can be really hateful. And that unleashes something that is very dangerous for our country. People need to be ashamed of being bigots. And we need to make them ashamed of being bigots. When we don't, they act with bigotry. It's just, and that's a big problem when you have a major news outfit encouraging people to behave badly and to hate their country and to love people like Vladimir Putin. That's another thing. You didn't mention that because there's a big long list of stuff that Tucker Carlson was terrible at. One of the things he was totally undermining the effort to Ukraine as a democracy and pushing for Vladimir Putin to take them over. Totally. And they're a fascist, anti-democratic force. That's really the only way you can look at that.
We've seen this before. Glenn Beck, Bill O'Reilly, and now Tucker. And so there is a pattern there. The other thing I hear you saying is that maybe it's both at the same time. There may have been an inciting cause. There may have been an excuse, essentially. Real underlying reason is no one's bigger than Rupert. The question that it arises for me out of these situations is Fox was totally fine with Tucker's act, and they seem to be able to tolerate all of this as long as it was making them enough money and giving them enough ratings. Is that the calculus that goes on inside media companies like this? We are willing to tolerate it up to the point that our accounting formula says it might cost us more than it makes us. Is that really all it is?
Yep, that's all it is. Yes, and I've seen it in action in various news organizations that yes, you have somebody who looks like they're being very successful. They're successfully building market for you and building brand, but they get bigger than the company and they get scarier and they start doing, and suddenly their act doesn't wear as well. Also, the second thing you pointed out with him saying terrible things or mean things about other Fox people and really acting like he had no respect for the company. Big bosses like that, like the Murdochs, they're sensitive to that, and they don't like to be insulted, and they may just have had enough. They may have decided we rode this horse as far as we can, it made us a bunch of money. See you later. And as I said before, I do feel like this, they almost prefer this kind of steady, kind of second tier Fox and Friends host type person who will just be with them and will say goofy things, but will spout the company line, but won't get ahead of things and won't become this gigantic brand in and of themselves. They want Fox to be the brand.
There's maybe a little degree of irony. There are people who are generally on the left, center left, like us, are cheering for Fox to get its comeuppance, obviously, through a defamation lawsuit. But the threat of legal action does not have a proud history for our side of the ideological spectrum in other contexts. I'm thinking specifically about the Jeffrey Wigand, the insider situation with 60 Minutes, where essentially the tobacco companies were able to shut down a 60 Minutes expose on the fact that they knew about the dangers of tobacco by threatening them with a tortious interference lawsuit. And then you had Voldemort himself coming into office as president saying, we need to change the libel laws. We need to change the defamation laws, make it easier to put media companies out of business because I'm so brittle and sensitive. You can't say anything bad about me. And so it does seem a little ironic that we've gone from saying, oh, no, that's terrible. This is an awful restraint on the media to saying, Yay, lawsuits.
But
Help me walk through that.
yeah, the standard now is Sullivan versus New York Times. It's where a person in Alabama, a public official, sued saying that the New York Times has gotten facts wrong in an ad they ran. And it was just ruled that the person was a public figure. And that was that there was a higher standard for a libel for a public figure, that it had to be actual malice or reckless disregard for the truth. And I love that standard. I think that's a great standard. In this Fox case, it met that standard. It met the standard because Fox was clearly had malice, clearly had reckless disregard for the truth. They were going to lose that lawsuit based on that higher New York Times versus Sullivan standard. And I like it the way it is.
What is it with these MAGA authoritarian types? This is a total sidebar, but what is it with them and how freaking brittle they are? I'm just reminded of the fact that Marjorie Taylor Greene literally called the cops on Jimmy Kimmel for telling a joke about her. She called the Capitol Police. She's, oh no, I've been offended. And Donald Trump, this was the hilarious comeuppance that he deserved in the whole like ridiculous Republican weaponization of the media, right, or whatever they're calling their total BS investigation into, I don't know, Hunter Biden.
Oh yeah.
They had that, they dragged a Twitter employee into a congressional hearing. They literally made a federal case out of Chrissy Teigen's tweet calling Donald Trump a pussy ass bitch. Just love repeating that. And then that led to the conversation inside Twitter. Our rules state that you can't string 3 insults together. So is pussy ass bitch a single conjoined insult, or is it 2 adjectives and a noun? Is it 3 adjectives? What is it? It's just, it's delightful. But the underlying point is that these folks are, my gosh, they're like a bunch of delicate doilies.
Right. They have this, we know where the snowflakes are, and it's clear. And the thing about it is they control almost all the media. If you look at what passes for objective and mainstream media in Fox, which is clearly just lying right-wing propaganda, that's CNN, which has now decided to go both sides, and so they're going to invite Republicans on to lie to their audience. And then you have MSNBC, which, if that's liberal, then we're in big trouble. And we are in big trouble because it's not liberal. That's as close to center, middle of the road as there is, I think. But there's not a left-wing equivalent to Fox. And you also, the New York Times, the Washington Post doing just the wrong thing a lot of the time, and still trying to just desperately pretend that Republicans are a legitimate political party instead of a criminal movement. You get this headline in the Washington Post yesterday: Biden is running out of time to avoid calamitous debt ceiling outcomes. That's the headline. So you've got Kevin McCarthy and the Republican Party holding the economy hostage, an economy that's really actually in pretty good shape thanks to Biden's policies. And they want to default on our debt. They want to, and this is not deciding whether we're going to spend money in the future. This is paying the bills for the stuff we've already done. This is, you got a bill in the mail, you're paying it. This is not deciding whether you're going to go out and buy a car or not. So they've already confused that whole situation and made it seem as if, well, we're going to stop the Democrats from their reckless spending. That's not what's going on. And so you're putting it all on Biden to stop the Republicans from holding the economy hostage. So how is he supposed to do that? Is he supposed to just knuckle under? We're supposed to the Republicans lost the last presidential election. They didn't win it. They lost it by a bunch of millions. So let's realize what the people of this country actually want, and not let these House Republican terrorists hold it hostage and just demand, we're going to shoot the economy if you don't do this. And that's the way that the Washington Post and the New York Times ought to be playing this, and not because it's partisan, not because it's biased, but because it's the truth. And that really needs to be the standard. Matt, what drives me nuts is the failure of mainstream media to put things in context. And when they just here's what the Republicans said, here's what the Democrats said, you figure it out. That's not journalism. That's stenography. And so what they need to be doing is explaining these things and making it clear that what's happening here is that the Republicans have decided that they're going to scuttle the economy unless the Democrats, who control the Senate and control the White House, knuckle under with what they want to do. And it really bothers me when they don't do that. And here's another example of a failure to put things in context and explain things by the mainstream media. And So you have Trump. So, this whole thing where, the thing with Stormy Daniels, you have Trump saying, they keep on writing sentences in their stories that say, Trump has denied having any affair with Stormy Daniels. All right, fine. They can say that. But wouldn't it be interesting if they said, Trump, who has been caught in tens of thousands of lies, has denied having an affair with Stormy Daniels? Now, that's true. That's objectively true. That's provably true. It also puts things in exactly the context that needs to be put, which is this guy who always lies to you is denying that he did this thing. That's helpful to the reader. That's accurate, and that's putting things in context. But they would never do it. And the reason they would never do it is because it would come across as biased. And that's why why so frequently they do not pull out history and explain things, or they don't put things in context like that, because they know that when they put things in context, it comes across as biased. And apparently, if you're mainstream media, if you're the Washington Post or the New York Times, appearing to be biased or being accused of being biased is poison. It's the thing you're most afraid of.
What I worry about, and you don't see this discussed enough, is that people respond to incentives. My training is in economics, not media. Many of our regular viewers can probably tell that. And you do learn what Warren Buffett says. People respond to incentives. And I am worried when you speak about the potential for a debt ceiling crisis, that the entire reporting class is missing the obviousness of the fact that Republicans have every incentive in the world to go over the cliff here and to cause a massive recession, if not a worldwide depression.
They want the economy to be bad. That's the thing. That's what makes them traitors, along with January 6th. But what makes them traitors is they want the economy to be bad. They don't have any issues. They're losing on the important issues, and that's why they lose elections. But so things have got to be bad. They've got to create crises. And so you know what? That's totally out of the fascist playbook, is create a problem, then promise to solve it.
It's like that Simpsons episode where Rod, the son of Ned Flanders, is praying and says, "And thank you, God, for saving us from the moth you sent." And so it's like, here they are manufacturing a totally avoidable economic catastrophe that's going to absolutely decimate all the people that they make mouth noises about caring about. And the media is reporting this as if, oh, it's an impasse. They're doing kind of play-by-play announcing, or they're giving headlines like what you just described. It was a brilliant tweet. I don't describe tweets as brilliant because Twitter is horrible, but like your tweets are actually worth reading. It was a brilliant catch, because it literally would be like they're saying time running out for police commissioner to address hostage crisis. Now, you're a former editor of newspapers in English language. Would you, if a writer came to you with that headline, would you give them a hard time for burying the lead, or for kind of an implied passive voice there because they've missed the culprit in all of this?
Yeah. What about the criminals? What about the people who actually did the bad thing? How about let's putting them in the headline? And if the Republicans get away with this coming across as, well, Biden just didn't want to play ball, or this is all Biden's fault, then the Republicans will have won. But because that's not the story at all. And the funny thing also is the Republicans aren't making it super clear what they want to cut, because they know everything they want to cut is popular.
Well, they're also taking advantage of the fact that this is such an abstruse issue. It goes over most people's heads. Every time I talk about it on this show, I feel like I have to give a disclaimer where I'm like, I know talking about debt and budgets is a snore. I'm sorry, but it's really important. I had Mark Zandi, who's one of the most celebrated economists in America, on the show. And I was asking him, and he did, in wonderful clarity, explain, here's why this is so bad. Here's why we should be afraid of this. Here's why they're playing not just with fire, but with like dynamite, our lives here. And I thought it was riveting stuff. It's just what Republicans are taking advantage of is the fact that people just aren't that interested in those shows, in those videos. They just don't do as well. And that's a problem. This is the perfect issue for them, because By the time the dust settles, when it really matters, when it comes down to voting, I guarantee you there are communications operatives inside the Republican Party right now who are thinking this or saying it out loud, where it's like, people are going to forget. They're going to forget where this came from. They're going to forget why we're in a crisis, why we're in a recession, and they're just going to blame it on the president. That's what they're banking on. And this is, people should pay attention to the debt ceiling, because this is the pathway that Republicans have laid out for the return of Donald Trump and the end of American democracy. This is the way it gets going.
I mean, it is fascist playbook. Create a crisis. Chaos is their friend. They don't want things to work out. Look at the whole Trump administration. They could even pass an infrastructure bill. What are you talking about? They don't pass things that will ever become law. It's really up to the news media to explain it properly so that the people who are playing the dangerous game get blamed for it if it goes bad.
That's what has me worried, is that
Yeah.
Are there responsible humans still in the Republican Party? Yes, of course there are. There are some. I think deep down, I think Mitt Romney understands the consequences here. I will give some credit here. I can't believe these words are about to come out of my mouth. I think that Mitch McConnell actually does not want to default because he understands the consequences. I can't be sure about that. But the point is, just like the majority of the Republican Party voted to overturn the results of the last election because that's all they care about, I submit to you that the majority of the Republican Party knows full well what a disaster this will be for Americans, for the world. And they want this because it goes back to incentives. They're political incentives. They will pay no political penalty. They will only reap political benefit if things go horribly wrong. They think that this is their path back to holding on to some political power, and they are willing to take it, and they're willing to throw all of us under the bus for it. And the only thing that I think can stop it is the media, and they seem unwilling from that headline. That's why I thought that headline catch was so brilliant from you. Where are the profiles in courage in the Republican Party saying, holy smokes, what are you fucking maniacs doing? I have people I represent in my district who are all going to lose their jobs and their houses with you people. Like, no. Who is there to say no?
I feel like that the only good Republican is the next Republican. And there are some, you see some. I maybe Kinzinger, for example, or the Lincoln Project people consider themselves Republicans, but I don't, because I think the Republican Party has gone so far away from any kind of real limited government kind of approach. I'm the son of Goldwater supporters, so I understand the right wing. I understand conservatism.
Oh, you're a reverse Alex P. Keaton. I love it.
Yeah, in a way. But I understand that. And again, you know what, Matt, if Fox News was an outfit that was just saying we're against abortion and we're for cutting government spending and that kind of stuff, those are all issues we can talk about. I don't view that as like dangerous. But those people tried to steal an election. That's treason. That's the kind of stuff you can't accept. That's where they go over the line. And so that's why I'm saying that the Republican Party is just not a political movement anymore. It's not a legitimate political party. It is a fascist movement, a white identity fascist movement designed to pull us back into the 1950s or earlier, anti-people of color, anti-women, and not really, certainly not a get government off our backs party. Look at all this stuff. Like, we're not going to let people travel to other states to get abortions, and we're not going to do we're going to ban books. Banning books is not get government off our backs. Banning books is government on our backs, and that's where they're at. And it also scares me, and just in general, about this with the fascist movement that used to be the Republican Party, is that they just, there's no stopping. There's no place where they will say, oh, let's share power. They don't want to share power. And they also had so demonized their enemies that they have made their enemy, this whole thing of Democrats want to kill babies after they're born, that kind of stuff.
Donald Trump literally said that yesterday.
Yes, that's a crazy thing. Nobody could possibly believe that. People did believe it. And not only did they believe it, they acted on it. If they can get people to believe that, they can get people to hate the other side so much and to forgive their own side for all the rampant corruption that it doesn't matter anymore. I think, and I feel like that's the real goal of all this stuff, is to so demonize the left and people of color and LGBTQ people, anyone who's the other, who's not a white heterosexual male being weird. That concept, when you can get to them to where they hate everyone else, then it doesn't matter what their side does. Whatever their side does is, well, that's what we had to do. We didn't have an excuse. We're fighting the devil over here. So it's, if we're a little devilish ourselves, it's okay because we're righteous. And then what happens is your side, all the gloves are off. Your side is no longer judged, has no set of ethics or anything. And that's what the fact that you actually have Republicans saying that Trump is brought to us by God. God sent Donald Trump. How crazy do you have to be to think that?
You have to be exactly Marjorie Taylor Greene crazy, who claimed that Trump was Jesus because he got arrested. I think that does bring the conversation full circle, because that is the corrosive effect. Ultimately, it goes back to your kind of the insidious effect. It's the stuff that's subterranean that's going on at Fox News, which is this permission structure that it gives all of us psychologically, and especially the people on the right who are activated, who are kind of comforted in, we're going to move a little bit further this way, we're going to move a little bit further this way. I legitimately have Republican friends who consider themselves to still be Republicans and who are operating under the thought that they're against Trump. They think all of this stuff is bad. They think Marjorie Taylor Greene is bad. They're embarrassed about all of this, but they think it's a rough patch. They think they're going to get through it. And I'd like to think that they're right. I actually do believe, as a member of the Democratic Party, that there is a role in this country for a counterpart, for a more conservative party that's ideologically coherent, that having multiple political parties serves as a restraint on the worst impulses of all of us. We all have some extremes somewhere, but you can no longer allow, if you're a Republican, you can no longer allow yourself to watch all of this stuff that you were just alluding to and just say, it'll come full circle, it's a phase, it'll pass. Because those people, if you ride with the devil long enough, pretty soon he's going to grab the wheel. And that's
no question.
He's grabbed the wheel. And it also goes back to your point about the media, which is, in real time, we're not seeing the media provide the context that would provide a little bit of antidote, a little bit of pushback to the Fox News effect. So what people are left with is, and thank you to all of you who are still viewing and listening to this show, is you have to go to, I'm not MSNBC, but you have to go to other sources of media. We work very hard to try to bring thoughtful, experienced people like you, Mark, to provide some of that context and some of that analysis and some of that perspective. That's where you have to go these days. And I think our show is awesome, but I'm sad that we're not joined by our friends at the New York Times. That's all.
Yeah. And just one thing that I want to say is that everything is not an opinion. Everything is not what we feel. There are actually facts out there. And whether you're dealing with Fox, whether you're dealing with MSNBC, New York Times, Washington Post, readers have the ability to read those stories and decide whether the facts are convincing. And what facts do they have? Do they support what they say? So we still have the ability to assess facts, and that'll set us free. That may be the only thing that saves us, is our ability to cut through all the BS.
Since that is literally the most hopeful thing that you or I have said in the course of this show, let's leave it there. Always leave on a high note. Mark, Jacob, thank you so much. Awesome perspective. As always, people can find you on Twitter, and they should, if you want to keep catching you holding the media to account.
Mark Jacob, MARKJACOB 16.
Thanks so much.
Thanks.